Please excuse the madness in the background, it's just the kids being kids. So today we have VE Day, and it's brought back a lot of memories for me of people that I grew up around and people that I worked with in my early days when I got into the workplace first of all. And a lot of them were ex-military from that period in time. Now, I think I spoke about one before. One was called Freddie, and Freddie was amazing. Freddie was actually a paratrooper, and he was dropped at Arnhem, and I believe his brother was as well. But I think his brother either got killed or badly wounded there. I'm not too sure. But Freddie took a hit to the leg, and he was an amazing man. When you think that all he'd been through and all he'd seen, he still kept a great sense of humour, camaraderie with the guys that he worked with, and he was just an all-round favourite. As were all of those old guys. I say old, they're probably the age that I am now when I was a kid. So, yeah, when I started working them, they were probably in their sort of late 50s, early 60s, maybe a little bit older, I'm not too sure. But they were amazing. So there was Freddie. Freddie was the one that everybody loved. The guy was a powerhouse. He was only a little chap, like a lot of paratroopers. But he was a real powerhouse, and he would work like a horse. Absolutely work like a horse. And for a man that was in his sort of mid-60s, getting up there, he put to shame all of the youngsters up to and including himself. He was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So that was Fred. That was one of the guys that I worked with when I got into the workplace as a kid. And the second one that I worked with a little later on was a guy called Ted. And Ted served in the RAF during World War II. And I always remember Ted saying to me that he was ground crew, and he got into a situation one day where I think they were loading bombs or something onto one of the planes, and for whatever reason the plane was a man short, and he happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and so they drafted him into going on this plane, and he'd never really been up in one before, certainly not a bomber.
I finally backed it, Mummy.
Very good for you. You do that. So Ted was drafted onto this plane out of nowhere, stuck on this aircraft. And I remember I thought, this is interesting. I'm going to have a chat with him. And he was another guy that was amazing. He had a great personality, fun-loving, just made the most of life, pretty much exactly the same as Fred. Although Ted was a lot more reserved, I think. Whereas Fred could be coarse. So anyway, the thing about Ted is that he went up in this aircraft, this bomber, with the crew. He said to me, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't even know why they put me on it. I think it was just to fill a space. So he's gone up there, and he must have been down where he was down where the bomb doors were. We could see the bomb doors opening. So I said to him, what happened? So he said, well, we flew and flew and flew and flew. Took off. He said, I was terrified. He said, I was sitting there shaking. He said, and as we got over land, he said the plane sort of came down a bit, and then the doors opened, and it just let go of everything that it had. All of its firepower, it just released. He said, and he was absolutely terrified watching these things fall from the plane. And he said that was bad. That was bad enough. But on the way back, they once they'd done their mission, they turned around, and then on the way back, he said they went even lower. I don't know why they went lower. He said, and he could see all the ground just zooming past through these bomb doors. So I don't know what the situation is, but they were still open. I don't know whether they were getting rid of excess firearms or whatever. But he said he said that terrified me. He said he was holding on to a piece of equipment. He said, white as a sheet and shaking. And that was one of his experiences of World War II as a young airman. So that was him. Of course, there were many men that I grew up around as a young boy, and these were in the days in the 70s when playing war was a very popular pastime for young lads, because obviously they grew up around these men that were heroes, so they admired them and they wanted to be like them. And I was one of those plastic army helmet, plastic machine gun. Of course, people try and discourage kids from doing that now, and I can see why, but you know, we were trying to emulate our heroes, and these heroes were our everyday men and women that we lived around. So, yeah, that was just a couple of them. I also used to drink with a guy when I was much younger. He was my brother's friend, really, called Packard. And Packard, that was his surname. We used to call him Packard. I can't remember his first name. But we used to drink with him, and he was a Spitfire pilot. And the thing is, we lived in Enfield. In Enfield, there were lots of nurseries, which is become apparent why in a minute. And there used to be lots of prisoners of war, the same probably as there were all over the country. There were lots of prisoner of war camps, and they used to use the Italians and the Germans to work on the nurseries. And a lot of those people stayed behind once the war had ended. And there was a German guy who was I remember him very, very vividly, nice man. He was a Luftwaffe pilot, and he got shot down he was a fighter pilot, and he got shot down over here during World War II, captured and put into prison, put into a prisoner of war camp. And I remember that him and Packard would drink together. They were best buddies. You know, this is many years after the war had ended, and they were best buddies, and they used to drink together continuously. And every time you go into the pub, you'd see them two over in the corner having like a mother's meeting, just chatting with each other. And it wasn't necessarily about the war, it was about everyday things. So there was him. There was a few of them. There was a few that I remember from my childhood. The guy who used to live downstairs from us, we lived in a flat at the time. I was only a kid. And he was called Ray. And Ray was ex-Japanese prisoner of war. So he'd fought in Burma, and he'd fought in the jungle. And that man had some tales to tell. Although he would very reluctantly would let you know what they were. But he'd seen some horrors. And the bottom of his feet were absolutely a massive scar tissue where they'd put cigarettes out on the bottom of his feet just for the fun of it. And they'd done it so much, not just to him, but to other prisoners, that it left him with nothing but scar tissue. But he was a lovely man. So these are the people that I grew up around, and I kind of guess made me the person I am today, because a lot of the influence comes from them, you know, about decency, doing the right thing, honesty, being there for each other, camaraderie, comradeship, call it what you will, friendship, all of that. They taught me and other children, men of my age, I dare say, and older, the values of each other, and the values of looking out for each other and after each other. And sadly, that generation is mostly about gone now. But you can still see that if you look back to the chap last week, Captain Tom. He's no longer captain now, he's colonel, isn't he? Colonel, I think. But you can see that the dedication and the level of service that he still gives to his country, and he's 100, and you can still see that the way that he still believes in working as a team, and that is something you don't really see anymore. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't know where this world is going to go, because there aren't many of those men or women, or any of them really, left to model yourself on and promote decency. So I don't really know. But I know one thing, I'm thankful to each and every one of them for everything they did, for giving us the quality of life that we have today, and allowing us to live in relative peacefulness. So yeah, that's it really. Just wanted to say a little thing and thank you. Probably gone over it before, but I thought I'd just add it in there, seeing as today was particularly prevalent, being it's VE Day. Yeah. That's it now. Thanks guys. Bye.